Hey, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well out there. I have some announcements before we get going. First of all, we're going to be doing a free event in Santa Monica, Tower 26. When is that happening? That's happening Thursday at 3:30 p.m. So free Transforming Trauma event for everybody in Los Angeles. The reason why we're doing it for free, or maybe it's donation based, free, same thing. Just because there's so much hecticness going on right here. There's so much loss and pain as well. But we're going to be out there. Some people are concerned about the air. The air actually, there's lots of wind. The air's hit or miss. I've been at the beach pretty much north of Palisades and even south of Palisades and Manhattan Beach. Air was really good in Manhattan Beach. So we're going to see how it is Thursday, but we'll be out there for free. And then also Human Garage has a hands-on clinic in Los Angeles if you're in Los Angeles for Saturday. Volume is not good. Is that true? Volume no good? It should be good. So let's talk about acceptance. Acceptance is different than avoidance, right? So if you think about the negative things that happen in our life, like things like pain and fear and just bumping into other people on this planet. I'm trying to speak louder because somebody said the volume was down, but then now there's a whole bunch of people saying volume is fine, so I don't want to be screaming. So acceptance is not avoidance. Acceptance is not resistance. Acceptance is acceptance. And actually, I have. Let's start this off. I wasn't planning on doing this, but let's start this off with the etymology of acceptance. What does it say? It's from acceptor. So Latin acceptanem. Action of taking or receiving what is offered. Action of taking or receiving what is offered. How can I get this to be more like that? Action of taking or receiving what is offered. To take what is offered, admit and agree to. Take or receive willingly. Receive or get without effort. I'm just reviewing the etymology of acceptance, acceptability, take or receive willingly. So there's basically a lot about receiving willingly. So if you think about resistance, think about negative things in our reality. Like if you just got fired from a job, right? You just got fired from a job. To accept it doesn't mean that you ignore your emotions about it, right? That would almost be the opposite of acceptance, which is resistance. Let's actually look up the etymology of resistance. This is basically what I do all the time as one of the things, resistance, of like how to understand what reality is. So I know you guys can't see the complete, let me see if I can get it narrower so that everything is on the screen that I'm seeing. There we go. Resistance. Military or armed physical opposition by force, difficulty, trouble. Or capacity of resistance, organized covert opposition to an occupying or ruling power. This is resistance. I'm going over the etymology of resistance. The electromagnetic sense of non-conductivity. Non-conductive is resistance. A force exerted by a medium to retard motion through it. Hence the figurative phrase path of least resistance. Well, resistance definitely holds up to its name. So to resist is the opposite of to accept. To accept is to receive. To resist is actually, it seems like a war term that basically means to oppose with opposition. So let's go back to getting fired from the job. If we are let go from the workplace, then there's emotions that may come up, there's thoughts that may come up, and that's all happening within you, right? And we have maybe thoughts of fear, we have thoughts of anger, or those are emotions. We have emotions of fear, we have emotions of anger. Maybe we have thoughts of what am I going to do, or I'm not going to be able to afford rent, or I'm so, this is happening again. I don't want to get too negative there, but you might have thoughts about your value as well. And now we have the question of to resist or to accept, because accept doesn't just mean accept reality as it is, accept the fact that your job, your employment let you go. Acceptance and resistance also applies to your own relationship with your emotions, your thoughts, and your actions. And so as our emotions come up, are we resisting them? Are we just burying fear, anger? Are we ignoring the other thoughts that we're having about how am I going to pay rent? This is just an example, right? Because that all is actually where the whole game is inside of ourselves. So to act, what we do externally is part of the equation. A lot of us feel like we're doing things one way, but inside of our own minds, we're doing the opposite. So we may accept to our employer, okay, I will go on without working here anymore. You may accept from him, but then internally there is no acceptance. There's a complete resistance happening, and that's going to create conflict. And when you have conflict in yourself, then you're essentially a conflict to reality, which is why I'm here, because my goal is to make sure and to empower, I should say empower as opposed to make sure, but my goal is to empower us to be in harmony, to empower as many people to be in harmony, because we're the ones creating all of this. And it starts with self. It always starts with self. And so can we expand our awareness of self? So if we're on, like, let's say that we realize that we're resisting our own thoughts and our emotions. What is that? Like, what's the answer there? How do we solve that, right? And that's what life is. Life is a big mystery. It's a game. It's a lesson where we are having pleasant things in life and we're having unpleasant things in life. And we tend to embrace the pleasant things and we tend to resist the unpleasant things. However, unpleasant things are inevitable. They're going to happen and they're going to trigger within us another lesson, which are the resolution of pain, fear, hurt, anger, sadness, and all of those thoughts. And so we tend, and I'm just repeating this again, we tend to suppress. We tend to, this is a different way, distract ourselves in order to bury the emotions and thoughts. Suppression, distraction, reframing, even something like positive thinking, where we're feeling sad and then we're just like, well, what are the good things about it? Like, if we just literally ignore, we're resisting what's going on in our mind and our emotions. Now, here's an exercise. You guys probably have all done this exercise before. We'll do it for 20 seconds. We'll do it for 20 seconds. Try not to think of a white elephant. So for 20 seconds, you can think whatever you would like. Think anything that you would like except for a big white elephant. Okay. So you see that if we resist thinking of something, it usually persists, right? It's almost impossible to not think of a big white elephant if you're told not to think of a big white elephant. It's just literally there. I even, when I just did it right now, thought like, oh, cool, I'm not thinking about anything. But actually I was like so deep into that big white elephant that I didn't even realize that I was there. I was like, no, actually I am the big white elephant. That's why I'm not thinking about it, because I literally just became it. So it was almost like I did it way more than I even knew I was doing it. So we're not trying to avoid ourselves. We're not trying to suppress ourselves. We're not trying to trick ourselves. These are, what are they called? I got it. Defense mechanisms. They're called defense mechanisms. Pathforger said, I thought of a forest, then the elephant appeared. So he even like thought of something else, and then elephant came in and trampled on that thought. This is how we accept, okay? So acceptance is also how we harmonize. There's an equation. It's actually one of the last reels that I made on here, raw_of_earth, and that equation, which if I had my whiteboard right now, I would put it. It's the equation that equals suffering. And how we get to suffering is, in the equation, it's pain times resistance equals suffering. Pain is inevitable, like I've been saying in this entire reel, or this entire live, multiplied by the amount that you're resisting is going to equal suffering. And then we learn from elementary mathematics class that anything times zero, anything multiplied by zero, is going to equal zero. So in order to get to zero suffering, we would resist zero. Then we would have pain times zero equals zero suffering. Which is cool to think about, because the painful stuff is going to happen. If we don't resist it, then it can resolve, it can harmonize. The more that we resist it, the more that it persists. And so present moment focus is how we accept. If you're feeling pain, if you're feeling fear, if you're feeling sadness, like, be in it. There's a reason for it. Be in it. And you'll actually find that a lot will come up in those moments, in those emotions. And really try not to judge what's going on. And then even if you do judge, try not to judge that you're judging, because that's a whole other loop that you get in, where you are trying not to judge, but then you notice when you are judging, so then you judge that you're judging. And then also another thing, if you guys aren't doing that, you might recognize the fact that if you are being non-judgmental, then you recognize the judgmentalness of other people, so then you now judge the judgmentalness of other people. But you see the paradox in that, right? Because you're judging them for judging, but you're the one judging. So you're still on the same page as the person you're judging. You're looking at the mirror. Okay. The intensity of resistance and control, the intensity of like how much you're trying to control something is going to prolong the duration of that emotion. So if you have fear and anger and you're trying to control, you're trying to suppress, that's going to prolong the amount that it stays down in you. And the reason for that is, and you guys have heard, I've said it already a few times, what you resist persists. The reason why our grandmas told us that, the reason why that saying keeps on sticking around is because, and I remember one of the first times one of my friends said that to me, I thought it was just kind of like, he was another business owner, and he said it, and I heard it before, but the way he said it, I was just like, that's just a catchphrase that is, it sounds all good, but I didn't really believe it. You know, this is a guy whose family grew up with like the Tony Robbins family, and so he was in self-development his whole entire life, and I didn't really believe it the first time I heard it. Now it's like literally absolutely true. It's a gnosis of mine. So the reason why that is because the way that we process emotions are all in the body. Something like anger is happening in your liver, right? So that's where this like organ reset by Human Garage is all about. Putting your hands on yourself. What are we doing? We're putting our hands on the back of our neck, putting our hand on our organ. That's taking energy. What do we do before the organ reset? You guys know? You guys, who out there does the organ reset, knows about the organ reset? This is what we do. Hold on, I'm seeing some interesting comments. I'm not judging these facts, and I will always speak out against his ignorant comments and actions. I'm not even sure what that means. I will never accept Trump. Oh, because it's talking about Trump's ignorance of the fires in California, according to Michelle. I will never accept President Trump's statements regarding. You guys can see this, right? We have somebody commenting about not accepting, and they're resisting, and they're continuing to resist, and they're continuing to persist, and they go to bed at night continuing to resist, and it's like this thing that's just overtaking somebody. All right, so organ reset. Let's move some of that anger out, Michelle. So you guys have done this before. If you're following Human Garage, this is all programs that they have. So we find the energy field of our hands. Right? I'm just kind of going through this. And then we put our hand on something like our liver, which is right side, right underneath our rib cage. And then we put our left hand on the back of our neck. Why are we doing that? We're directing energy flow from our hand through our liver up through the organ system up into our higher centers. And then what do? We speak. So we're directing this energy up into our throat. In the East and in the yoga community, we call these chakras. We don't even have to label it though. We're taking energy from our hands, we're flowing it up. We're taking stagnant energy, stagnant anger from our liver, and what do we say? Thank you, anger, for being there for me when I needed you most. I no longer need you in my body to protect me. I forgive myself. I forgive my mother. I forgive my father. Okay, so let's break that down. You guys know the deal. If you guys aren't familiar with what I'm just doing, it's called Organ Reset. Go to humangarage.org, go to Human Garage's YouTube, go to Human Garage's events, and you're for sure going to see this. Just reading some of these comments. Probabilities versus possibilities. The reader affects the outcome. Fortune tellers play on probabilities. Seers play on possibilities. That's from Scott. Path Forger, much more powerful with moving energy in the hands for sure. So what are we doing when we do this? So when an event happens to us, we experience it first in our root. We experience, like, are we safe? Do I need to run away from here? We make that decision there. And then we start going up the system. How do I feel about this? Do I need to say something about this? What do I think about this? What does this mean in the greater context of my life? Can I integrate this into my life? However, if you don't get past those stages, if you never found a resolution of safety, if you just have an event and you just feel unsafe and there never comes a point where you feel safe again, that energy never flowed up through your system and it's still stuck. It's still there. And whenever it comes up to visit you, say like, knock, 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 I'm still here. Can I be released from your body because I actually don't really like being here? I'm an energy flow. I like to flow, right? So we have these energy flows that are trying to come up, and what do? We resist, we suppress. No, I'm not thinking about you right now. Like I'm not acting on this. I'm not going to resolve this. And so that's how, when we resist things, it just stays within us. It literally becomes a part of our personality. And we start to now identify with it. So instead of thinking something like, I'm experiencing anger, which is a weird thing to say as an American. They're like, that sentence is completely wacko. In this moment, I am experiencing anger. It sounds like you're a freaking lunatic when you say it. Why does it sound weird? Because how we express it, how we're modeled by our parents, by our movie stars, by our teachers, how it's modeled to us is not in a temporary state by saying something like, I'm currently experiencing anger. No. We own that SHIT. We make it permanent. And we say, I am angry. We literally embody it. I am emotion. I am emotion. And that imprints itself into us. So we have all of this going on, right? And then we do the organ reset and we release it. Guys, if you've ever been to a Human Garage event, there's like literally tears upon tears upon tears. Love people just like going to places that they've probably never been before. They haven't been able to release stuff. Like borderline convulsions sometimes. Not everybody, but you're happy for the people that are able to release too, because you can almost feel, not almost, you literally feel, you almost see it. It's like almost like a sensation that I don't even have words for. Just like release of energy, like the whole room, if we're watching a person, we're feeling with it. I'm just remembering all the events. Beautiful offering you guys have brought forth, so needed. And then you stop projecting the energy onto others. It's funny. The comments right now, and it's hard to do when you see somebody so in their opinions. It's natural. Maybe it's programmed, but it's pretty natural for us to come up with our relationship to that in the form of a label, in a form of a judgment. And judgments are, should I say the word dangerous? But then that's a judgment on a judgment. That's a label on a judgment. So judgments are judgments. Okay, let's actually just, before I start getting too out of here, let's actually just look at what the etymology of judgment is before I start putting some other label that is my own understandings. Doubtfulness? What are we getting? Dubious. Judgment. Action of trying at law. Capacity for making decisions. Decision actually means to cut off. Decisive. Legal judgment. Diagnosis. Jugir. Penalty imposed by court. Any authoritative decision, verdict in a court case. Sense of discernment. Opinion. Oh, this one's actually interesting. A divine allotment. Oh no, this is from the word discernment. So you see that the difference between judgment and discernment. Discernment is first recorded in the 1530s, and it eventually in the 1600s means a divine allotment, event regarded as an expression of divine displeasure. So that's what discernment means. Okay, so that is a little bit about judgment. Judge means to examine, appraise, make a diagnosis, to form an opinion about, inflict penalty upon, punish. Man, judgment is a pretty harsh word. Pronounce sentence. It's pretty harsh. So the potential issue with judgment is that it splits things into black and white. And also, it makes us pretty much have blinders on when we are in the state of judging. So, for instance, if you view financial success as good and poverty as bad, you will look at somebody who's massively successful as good. You will respect, you will judge and appraise in a positive fashion, because that matches your values as a person. And then you meet somebody, maybe it's a friend, who has other values. Maybe they value recreational time. And so in their life, as opposed to working 16 hours a day, they chose to meditate or have fun with their friends for 16 hours a day. And they still, have the 8 hours a day to do whatever. And that person might actually feel wealthy, maybe even more wealthier than the wealthy person. But you are going to have a judgment that because they're not as successful, they're somehow wrong or bad. Whereas somebody else, maybe from a different culture, who doesn't see financial security, financial independence as valuable, would rather be more aligned with the person who isn't so consumed with financial responsibilities. So that's just a super simple example of how judgment brings you into this like black or white mentality. And you choose whether it's discernment or limiting. While the etymology of decision is huge, to decide to cut off the flow of what's possible. All right, so we're gonna go there. I mentioned that as a let's go to decision. Decide or decision. Let's do decision. Decision. Act of deciding, from Latin decisionem, a decision settlement agreement. Noun of action from past participle stem decidere, to decide, determine. Literally, to cut off. From de, which is off, and cadere. How would I say that? Kaidire, which means to cut. So think about scissors, guys. Scissor comes from this same word, to cut. So de means off, and then scissor, to cut off, is what decision means. The quality of being decided in character, final judgment or opinion in a case, ability to make prompt determinations. So decision means to cut off, which the reason why that was front of mind for me is because I bring up decision constantly. To make a decision literally means you say no to, like, what are you saying no to so that you can say yes to something else. There needs to be space. You cannot just fill a full hole. In order for something to come in, we must create space. Buddy, you're speaking my language. Thank you for letting me know that. All right, so we're back to pleasant. So I talked about resistant things. There's also, in terms of acceptance, there's accepting what is not, right? So we might have conflict internally if and this is a big one, if our life is not at the level that we want. And I'm using that word want specifically because want also etymologically means to lack. So if we are recognizing that we are lacking, if we're wanting, which isn't greed one of the 7 deadly sins? So if we're wanting, that also creates conflict. And we have conflict because we're recognizing and grasping for reality that the winds are blowing really strong right now. We're recognizing a reality that isn't what we want, and that also causes resistance. We resist what is. And so the answer to all of this, which is available for us all in every single moment of life, is to accept what is. And we do that by being present. And we do that by being aware that life fluctuates. Like, this is the universe, right? So back to etymology. Uni, one, verse. That's a song. So we have one song. And within this song, there's fluctuations. There's emptiness. There's tension. There's also harmony. But all of the harmony is made up from these highs and lows. Otherwise, you can't just have like one high tone. Exuberant blissfulness. Like that isn't the universe. The universe is harmony, but it doesn't mean only one thing. the universe is happening in a continuum of highs and lows. And so just recognize that nothing lasts forever. For me, it was as simple as that. And I guess the main point where I came to that was around 2007 or 8. So we're like 15-ish years ago. Maybe almost 20 years ago. 18 years ago, something like that. I had a penthouse apartment loft in downtown LA where I had a gym, and that was actually my 4th gym location. I started in a 1-bedroom apartment, living room, then moved to a 2-bedroom apartment where I used, and a garage. So I had a garage and a 2-bedroom apartment living room. And then I moved from there to a loft where I lived upstairs. The gym was the whole downstairs floor. And then from there, I moved to, so it was my 4th location, to a penthouse, 11 stories, 6th and Main Street in downtown LA. And my car was in the basement. And for whatever reason, I would constantly forget something. You know, when you run out of your house and you're like, oh, I forgot that thing, I have to go back inside. Well, when you live in something like that, the elevator, there's only one elevator because the second one was broken. So there's one elevator that goes super slow. So if I forgot something, what do I have to do? I get out of my car, go back to the elevator, hit the button, wait there for literally 5 minutes. Elevator takes me up, stops at whatever floor on the way because I'm going to the top floor, all the way up, and then have to go get the thing and then repeat that whole process. Like, come back to the elevator, hit it, it's already went down to get other people, it's going, and eventually comes up to get me, and then I have to go back down. And it was only after a few times of doing that I was like, okay, it's inevitable that I'm not going to every single time know and have the funny thing is, why didn't I just make sure why don't I just make sure every time before I leave the door to have everything that I need? But I didn't go there. My brain, I kind of know that I forget things because I played full contact sports my entire life, and my noggin has been knocked around a lot. I fought a lot. I rode my bike into a brick wall down a hill when I was in 5th grade, got knocked out, had my whole face the size of a grape. I know I'm going on tangents, but I'm trying to be entertaining. It's just a solo person here telling stories. Anyways, I thought, okay, well, it's bound to happen that I'm going to forget something, so I'm just going to accept it from now on. It was just like, and it was surprisingly easy to just accept that, okay, I forgot something, I have to go through this 10-minute process again. And not take the stairs, or why didn't I take the stairs? Yeah, definitely. I ran up and down those 11 flights of stairs all the time. Okay. Somebody's asking about my Wi-Fi. Yeah, it's a little weak. I forgot to turn on the extender, which is right there. But I keep all my Wi-Fi off. And we have a cord that goes to my computer in my office, and I ran a cable outside my house to Carolina's computer as well, so that we don't have to have the extenders on. So all of this, nothing's going to last forever. Change makes life dynamic. That's another way to accept what is. Like, accept. You're going through different seasons, different chapters of your life. You can choose or decide to be excited rather than angry, right? So we can decide, we can cut off the anger and fear, and we can accept that this is a new chapter. Obviously, I just got fired, or I just totaled my car, or my house is burnt down, or I just broke up, or my business just failed, or I just quit my job, or I just closed my business. Whatever it is, like, it's a new chapter. And it's also a new experience. It's also a new experiment, because this is all a lesson. And when those pleasant moments come, if we're in this state of being, that is going to allow us to experience the pleasant moments fully, because we're not trying to hold on to them. It's really easy when something good happens to consume yourself with trying to protect it. I'm going to protect this. I'm going to grab on to it. What are you doing? You're resisting flow. You're resisting flow, and that whole flow is what? Resilience Rise is saying acceptance reduces suffering for me. So there's I think it's a Zen Buddhist? I think it's from Zen, where they imagine like a piece of like a swinging, like a string swinging, and they say like life is this, and I'm gonna butcher this, guys, because it's like something I heard once and integrate, like, and I was like, I didn't even have to integrate it because I was already there, but I was like, that's an amazing philosophy. But I'm gonna butcher this. If somebody knows like how this actual story goes, definitely write it in the chat. So I'm gonna just say a bell. I know it's not a bell, but they just imagine it's not a bell. It's like I think it's a belt. They imagine something swinging. Like imagine a string with the bell, and this is life. Sometimes things are good, they come to you. Sometimes things flow away from you, right? And so pendulum, sure. So if we're trying to get rid of stuff, rather than let the flow happen naturally, if we're just trying to push it away, now we're pushing away this bell. What happens if we push it away further than it was going to go on its own, or faster than it was going to go on its own? Once we can't maintain that push, eventually it's coming crashing to us, which is another way of saying what you resist persists. However, the flip side of that is if we're just reaching and grabbing onto the pleasures of life and just trying to maintain and protect all that is good. And so instead of letting that bell come to us and flow away, let it come to us at its proper flow, like what was meant to be. We're holding on to it. What happens when we can no longer maintain that hold? You're pulling it further than it desires to go, and it's going to snap away from you. And that was a completely butchered way of explaining it, but I think you guys get the point. If we're pulling things to us in a manner that is like resisting reality, resisting the natural flow, then those things are eventually, when you cannot hold on to them anymore, which will be inevitable because it's not natural, is going to slingshot away from you. So experiment. I look at a lot, the difference between an experiment is a nice way to put experience. Experience is like being in the moment. If you're having trouble with the results, look at it as an experiment, because if you look at it from like a scientist point of view, you can then be present in the results of the experiment without being attached to those same results. You're not attached to the results because it was an experiment to begin with. So just to clear up and to bring home acceptance. Acceptance is not covering over. Acceptance is not lying to yourself, telling yourself stories, just trying to think positive. Acceptance is not being sort of like, well, I don't care. That's not acceptance. Doing it to be liked by other people, also not acceptance. Passive aggressiveness, like you're kind of just doing it, but internally not really agreeing with it, also not acceptance. I know what you are saying. Yes, that's the purpose. Controlling things causes resistance and restricts flow. That's fire though. Bungee cord release the attachment. Holding on to fantasy, delusion. Yes. Like a bow and arrow. Yes, exactly. It's accepting I am not in control of the outcome. Thank you guys for these comments. Like, you guys are putting to your words what my words are meaning to you. Anyone else having trouble with the video? No. Not accepting things as they are, allowing what is to be as it is versus being grateful for what comes to you unsought. How do you tell when it's natural flow or you're pulling it? I've been struggling with this as I've been trying to activate my more creative side for the first time in my life. So just look at the statement here. I've been struggling with this as I've been trying to activate my more creative side for the first time in my life. This is, did Einstein say it? Let me just check this out. Let me just see this quote. Einstein, profound solutions are simple, something like that. Here we go. This is an AI overview. Who the heck knows if that's even true? The phrase, profound solutions are simple. What does this say? Everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. When the solution is simple, God is answering. So Einstein had a lot to say about simple solutions. I couldn't find the exact quote that I was looking for, but something like, if it's a profound truth, then it has to be simple. And the simpleness of Lily Healy is that if you just get rid of the word trying, so I've been trying to activate my more creative side for the first time in my life. Just get rid of the word trying. And now you're not grasping. You are activating your creative side. And you're recognizing that this is the first time in your life that you've been doing it. Once you actually determine that, like, hey, I am creative, as opposed to I'm activating my creative side, but then you actually embody the creativity, then you're going to realize that you've been creative your whole life. You just didn't know it. And that's the beauty of going through these processes, is we learn things about ourselves that we didn't know before. Someone said he's in Ireland with no issue with the video. Acceptance is actually sobering for me. Even accepting death, I'm not even reading the rest of this comment now, but that's the ultimate acceptance. Once you are okay with death, everything else is amazing. It's an experience. If you can solve the problem, I'm calling it problem like as a math term. Let me restate. If you can solve the equation of death, like how that causes confusion and conflict within yourself, if you can solve the equation of death, then everything else you have the tools to handle. So let me finish reading this by Path Forger. Even accepting death and loss of loved ones, our ego wants to hold on to them, forgetting they are on the journey themselves. Yes. The person who dies is not feeling sad or angry that they died. It's only the people that they leave behind. I think about death as a graduation. You can let yourself have goals, maybe make it a habit or practice. Ra, how does financial abundance fit into all of this? I have one statement for that. You're rarely going to earn more than you feel that you deserve. So that's one way of saying it. You're also rarely going to earn more than you ask for. You're rarely going to get more than you ask for is really how that one goes. And so when it comes to abundance financially, this is all having to do with the vision of self, guys. Whatever we are accepting in our reality is because we created it. If there's a reason for you to have more money, then things are going to work out for you to have more money. If you just want more money, like this word financial abundance, if you just want it because it sounds cool, you might get it and then nothing's going to change or you're going to lose it. There needs to be a lot more happening, a lot more harmonized than just wanting more money. Like why? Like why is money necessary for you? Who are you to be responsible for this abundance of energy flow? The person that has the money that you see as abundant, and I'm not speaking to this person particularly, I'm just speaking to all of us. The person that has the amount of money that we see as abundant may not have that same relationship with the money. They might not see it as abundant. They may see it as necessary. This is necessary. There's a study I heard of, and I never looked it up, so it may or may not exist. But there's a study I heard of when I was very, very young, where they were looking at like the top 1% of reality and of the earners in reality, and they were looking at the bottom. It was, I think, maybe the top 10% and bottom 10%. And again, I didn't look up the study, so this may or may not be true, but the lesson in it can be integrated. And they asked these people, bare minimum, how much would you need to survive? Like bare minimum, how much would you need to survive? And the majority of the wealthier group, or let's start with the non-wealthier group. So the majority of the poor group, the 10%, the bottom 10%, they said something like the average was like $15,000 a year. And this was like 20 years ago, this study. Maybe, yeah, it was like 15. I'm just making up numbers at this point, guys, because I don't remember. It was 20 years ago. So $15,000 a year. And then they asked the same question to the top 10%, and they said $250,000 a year would be absolutely necessary for them to have the bare minimum in life. And so then when they're analyzing it, all of the researchers were like, well, it's because the wealthier people think that they need $250,000 because the things that they buy are more expensive, and the things that the poorer people buy are less expensive, so they only feel like they need, I actually think it was 30,000 was the number. They only feel like they need 30,000. And then one researcher was like, well, yeah, that is obvious, but what if the reason why these people are in the top percent of finances, socioeconomic class, maybe the reason why they're making so much money is because they feel that 250,000 is bare minimum. Like maybe it's actually the catalyzing force that got them into those financial states to begin with, not the other way around, where they just feel like they need more money because they need to spend it on more things. So it's like almost like we harmonize into realities of our acceptance. And so how can we accept more? There's another quote that I love in business, because I'm in a business that has unlimited earning potential with Purium. I'm actually doing a opportunity call in 3.5 hours. Go to Raw of Earth on Instagram to register for that. So 4:30 Pacific time, I'm talking about what it is that I do for money. And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. But because I'm in this sort of like unlimited income opportunity, basically we get paid for what we're worth. And that means that people can earn however little or however much they would like based on their thoughts, emotions, and actions, which is why I love it, because we're essentially manifesting. I get to teach people how to manifest and then watch them manifest. But one of the statements that we say is the bigger the problem, the bigger the paycheck. If you're solving gigantic problems, there's going to need to be more flow of energy that comes to you. So just simply wanting more is like pulling it in. But if you're brainstorming about big problems that we're facing, big problems require a lot of energy, a lot of money, and there's going to be a lot of flow that comes in and out through you. It's a currency. It's a current. It flows. It's simple, but it may not be easy, which is why it's simple. Thank you, Ra. I appreciate this. It is so much easier when we are no longer in fear of death. Your soul never dies, just your physical body. Exactly. Energy never dies. Human Garage and you people are so giving. I believe that as this grows, because of the good, you will end up with loads of money because you are helping. So survive versus thrive mentality. Yeah. And this is all not black and white. So there's a whole bunch of contradicting things that I will say now to some other, like we're speaking about this from a different perspective of the conversation. There's contradictions in all of reality. And that would depend on what thrive means to the individual. Perfectly poignant. What problems do you solve at work? Me, particularly, we're the GMO solution. We have the only thing proven to remove glyphosate. We're also helping people nourish their clientele in ways that don't require them to make a diet plan, because nobody's clients follow a diet plan anyways. So maybe 1% of their clients follow diet plans. So we alleviate the need for practitioners to recommend diet plans, and also we handle chemical toxicity in a way that nobody else can touch. Handling the big problem of credit card debt. Huge lesson learned. Yes, and you benefited from that lesson. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I just realized I still have the decision still up on the screen. Once again, we have a free event Thursday, Santa Monica at 3:30 p.m. if you're in the area, and then Human Garage is in LA if we have a event on Saturday, a hands-on event in downtown LA.